it became the time that the plane was supposed to be in the sky, and it wasn't there. And so I called the guy who was managing the flight, the actual plane, and he was like, "Please hold. We have maybe a situation." And I was like, "Wait, what do you mean situation?"
It's another one that you probably never heard of, but it's the kind of people that I like to show off on a show like this, where I can like shine a light on someone and give them some exposure and get to know who they are and what they've done. The thing is, you know what this person's done. In fact, millions of people have seen what this person's done. They organized a plane to fly around Menlo Park, which is the headquarters for Meta, with a message on it involved with Echo. So if you're into Echo, you've definitely seen this. This was like big hype around the times of the shutdown. This was organized by a person that I'm going to have on the show today that you're going to meet. We get the behind the scenes story. We find out what was it actually like to sit in that car and hold your camera for 3 hours recording this plane that you've organized. We crowdfunded the community to get it up there, and then it's being seen internally in Meta. It's reported that that message is getting seen, knowing that you're putting that work in, and doing your part in these like group moments for the community. We talk about that, obviously. That's really interesting. And personally, I really wanted to know about that. What it was like to actually organize that, and why this person was so invested in the community and wanted to save it and put all that effort in. But we also talk about them being a combat player. I think I haven't had any combat players on. Echo VR was rebranded from Echo Arena to Echo VR to include another game mode called Echo Combat. If you're an Echo player, you probably know this very well. I haven't really sat down with anyone in the Echo Combat, specifically the niche community. So I really wanted to make the most of it, especially as by the time you're watching this, the game's probably done. It's probably gone forever. So I really wanted to document it. And in a true Titanic shipwreck explore kind of vibe, that's what I wanted to go for. Towards the end of this episode, you're going to see us, this person's going to take me through the maps of combat, and we're going to kind of explore this part of game history. That's the vibe I was going for. I hope it works, who knows. But either way, hope you enjoy it. This is Rev2600. Great number, great name. Let's get into it. Rev2600, how are you?
Good, yeah.
I appreciate you making the time for this. Right now it's 3 p.m. in the afternoon, but for you it's 8 a.m., 7 a.m.?
Yeah, it's 7 a.m. Must be 7 a.m. now. Right. Yeah, not too bad. I always say, as a parent, the one thing you get is the superpower to wake up at any time of day. 7 a.m. is not too bad, but, because you do it for so many years and it just kind of never goes away.
Right. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, I want to kick this off straight away by saying the first time I saw you was on Discord, was early February 2023, when a Discord server was made called Save Echo. And I can't remember how, but I ended up in some mod chat for it. And I saw your name coming up. I obviously noticed your name straight away because it had a 26 in it. I was like, oh, who's this guy? And you were heavily involved, heavily invested and wanting to drive things forward. Particularly, I got the impression you came from the combat world. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Combat community?
Yeah. I mean, I love Arena, but I've always been an FPS gamer, right. And so combat was just the realization of several dreams for me. So As soon as combat came out, I was basically on it all the time. And it's a smaller community than Arena, but involved there and know all the people there.
Did you play much of Arena at all? Or was it a dabble and then just combat most of the way?
Yeah, so I probably have 600 Arena games, which is not very many. So, when I started, I missed the Arena beta, but I got in as soon as the game launched. And so I pretty much played Arena all the way until combat came out. And then kind of once combat was out, I was like, well, I'm gonna play more of this. But I love Arena. Arena's an amazing game. It's it's such a different game. And I feel like if I'd had a better like team of people to play with, like with Arena, like I could have easily been sucked into that because it's
Yeah.
such a great team game. You know, combat is a team game too, but it's, you know, it's a different kind of, obviously different strategy and everything.
Did you play competitively in combat? Because I know that there was some like paid VRL, whatever the league was called back then.
Yeah,
When they were, yeah.
they did a couple tournaments. I was not playing competitively at that point. I probably would have liked to, but I didn't have enough friends to get a team together, and I wasn't,
Right.
you know, close enough with the community then, and so I never actually played. Well, I played much later in like one of the kind of community sponsored tournaments,
Mm.
but I was on like a kind of like I don't know, I was on the B squad team. I hate to say it, we were okay, but we weren't like, you know, we weren't like winning anything. But I'm mostly a solo player. Like that's just how I've kind of been. I enjoy playing by myself.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much.
So how would you play the game if you eventually had a team, but was it more just queuing up like late night pubs? You'd queue up and play with whoever's online.
Yeah, I'd pretty much play pubs, and then as I got more involved in the community, I'd get invited to like private matches later on,
Mm.
stuff like that. But by the time that happened, like by the time I was kind of more invested in the community and in all the discords, like I think the competitive combat scene had kind of waned a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I never got, you know, I don't know. I remember who was it that won? I think like Kaznaz and some of them won the first combat tournament. I think it was maybe the
Right.
second. I don't remember. And so by the time like I was in the community, I think they were kind of like moving out of it, maybe. Um, yeah, because it was mostly a whole new group of people that kind of came in at that time. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, well, let's take it all the way back. So you previously worked with VR before, or
Yeah, so I'm a software engineer and I've done that
right?
for a long time. But I've done a lot of different areas. So I've done like mobile apps and front end, back end, like a bunch of
Right.
stuff. I live in the Bay Area, so it's like the tech community is out here, and
Okay.
so you can kind of just jump around places, and that's what I've done more or less since school. And my friend started a VR company called Kind VR, Kind, and it's actually like a usage of VR in the healthcare setting.
Okay.
So they'll put you into like if you have to have a painful procedure done,
Yeah.
it really can be anything. Like even if you just have to get a needle poke or something like that. But they also do it with like chemo patients and stuff like that, or sickle cell, like a bunch of conditions that have to do painful procedures. They
Mm.
put you into VR, and like while the procedure is being done, because it's such an amazing distraction, you know, it like distracts your brain. And
Right.
they've shown through studies that when your brain is distracted, you feel less pain. So they can do this stuff. So it actually is used mostly in pediatrics, so with kids,
Yeah.
that otherwise they would have to give them like, you know, drugs basically to like either knock them out during the procedure or reduce the pain level during the procedure. So pediatric doctors love it because they can just throw a headset on. They're in some kind of, you know, we had a bunch of worlds that we made and I helped make with him. And it felt really good. You know, parents email you and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like my kid, you know, has to go in to get these procedures done like every month or, you know, something. And they're like, oh, the kid used to hate it. Used to be the worst thing we did every month. And then, you know, as soon as they were able to get this Kind VR headset, you know, they love it. They go in, they're not afraid anymore. Like, so it was a really special, you know, kind of introduction to VR for me. That was kind of how I actually got involved in VR. And that company is still going, but
Oh, cool.
I was mostly doing contract work. So I just kind of help out, you know, where I can as needed, but it's not a full-time job.
Was this like Oculus Go or Gear VR, or was
It
this
was
PC VR?
Gear VR initially, and then they moved to Quest, but now they've moved off and they're on Pico
Right.
Neo.
Cool. And was that your first VR project, or does it go way back with VR?
Well, technically, so that was my first professional VR
Right.
project, but in college I took a class with this professor who's fairly well known. His name's Randy Pausch. He's like an early VR sort of innovator, and he
Right.
passed away like very tragically through pancreatic cancer, and had this whole thing where he went on Oprah and delivered like the last lecture, and it was like really poignant. And they like gave him a role in the Star Trek movie and all this stuff. Like it's crazy. But he used to run a class at Carnegie Mellon called Building Virtual Worlds, and it was using like those really primitive, like the early VR headsets that had like the worst field of view and like could render about like 100 polygons. It was a Dactyl Nightmare, or what is it called? Yeah, that was it. I think the name of the early VR game. So it was pretty bad tech, but we built a couple worlds in that.
When like
that were
what kind of
pretty fun.
era is this? Is this like way back, like
This
90s?
was 2000. So I graduated in 2005 from college. So
Right.
this was like 2003, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, and then so that was like, if you want to say technically, that was my first VR, first
Right.
VR work. But yeah, after that, I was like a long hiatus until the Rift came out.
When you say hiatus, you mean you were working as a software developer. Were you a contractor? So you were touching many different projects?
I had a couple of full-time gigs just here and there, but it was mostly at startups, and so startups kind
Yeah.
of like get a bunch of money and then they either make it or they don't. So it's kind of like hopping around that space for a while.
Okay. And it really was just your friend had this that healthcare project, and that was your first like no, I mean like, that was like the coming back to VR and like seeing it progress, or what had
Yeah.
you had an eye on it since then?
I'd been out of games for a while. Like I'd kind
Right.
of, because I'm a little older than some gamers. I'm like 42. So when I started playing games like Doom and Wolfenstein were like brand new. That was like
Yeah.
my gaming. And so I played a ton of that. Like when Quake World came out, Quake 1 was the first internet connected, multiplayer FPS. Played like so much. I was ranked in Quake there's the famous tournament where Thresh won John Carmack's Ferrari. It was the Red Annihilation tournament in like, I don't know, 1996 or something, something like that.
Right.
And I was ranked in that tournament. I was like around, I think I was top 100. I remember being top 100, which I felt pretty good about as like a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
And so then when I went to college, I kind of stopped playing games because I kind of was like, all right, I kind of saw myself getting like too sucked into it, and I was like, I'm going to college. I need to kind of like be more social and like get to know people and stuff like that. And so I actually like got rid of my computer. I was like, I'm just going to like chill out for a while. And that just, even though I eventually got my computer back, I didn't go right back to gaming. And so really, I actually wasn't until like, this is kind of funny, but I went from like the last game I remember playing was Half-Life 1. That was
Okay.
like the last FPS, or basically the last game I played until Lone Echo. So
Right.
like my experience of gaming was like Polygon World, like spiky people and like way early, and
Yeah.
then to go to like a AAA game on like a modern PC. I was just like, holy shit, like this is, for it to be in VR, it just like absolutely blew me away. So that was it. Yeah. So, and it was because my friend had kind of like got me, he was like, yeah, he's like, you should try to VR. Like, it's kind of amazing. And I was like, yeah, all right, I'll get into it. And he had like an extra Rift that he actually like gave me. And,
Right.
I had been like building a computer. And so I was like, all right, give it a shot. And it's like, this is incredible. Like this is like, it was just like everything I've ever wanted, like not only in like gaming, but just kind of, from a life experience standpoint, like the ability to just teleport yourself into another world. It's like stepping into like a lucid dream, and here you are, like, and especially with 0G, it just felt so much more real.
Yeah.
It just fully commit. Like some people have different reactions to VR. They get in and they're like, "Well, that was cool," but they never really want to do it again. They don't like. It doesn't really like grab them. For me, it just utterly grabbed me. I mean, I was like from the minute I stepped into Echo, I was like, this is just amazing. Like this feels like I'm living another life, as this other person in this other world. And I always just wanted to go back just for how like amazing that experience was, and is. So it really hooked me.
What was it that hooked you? What was it that grabbed you? Is it you described like going in the zero gravity and the lucid dream? Could you tangibly say what it was that did that?
I mean, I guess I've always enjoyed. I've always enjoyed like movies and film in the sense that it like transports you to somewhere else and gives you an experience of something else than your normal day-to-day life. And I think that had a lot to do with it, where it was like, you're in this world, and it's a fully consistent universe. You can imagine this place actually being real, and you being on a space station, and it feels real, and there's nothing breaks that realism almost at all. So, your brain just accepts it, and that really, I just found that so compelling. And then obviously the sport aspect of it, I've always been really competitive. And so when Arena came out, I was like, yeah, this is so much fun. And actually, I've always been a science fiction buff, and Ender's Game was one of the first sci-fi books that I ever read. I like vividly remember getting kicked out of sixth grade Spanish class because I had to finish Ender's Game. Like I was just like on the last chapter, and I was like, I have to finish. I cannot put this down. And I got kicked out of Spanish class. And I took the book and I read the rest of it outside the classroom. And so like, my friend was like, dude, you got to try this. Like someone made Ender's Game in VR was how he described it. And I was like, oh, that sounds amazing. Like I got to do this, And it was that might've been it more than anything, is that Ender's Game, like I still, even being like, I was like, late 30s, I still like vividly remembered like how much like the world of that book was still real in my mind. And so the idea that someone had kind of like tried to kind of make something like that, I was like, God, I have to try that. And of course it like totally held up. I was like, wow, this really is, this is just like the book. And it like added to all the magic of it to me.
And you played Lone Echo all the way through first before you went into any arena, is that right? Or did you start it and then quickly move on?
I'm trying to remember actually, and I may have. I don't remember exactly. I think I played arena first actually. I think that's actually what happened. But I might have like done the tutorial in Lone Echo first. Like the two are kind of mixed in my mind. I've probably played them side by side. But I do remember, I actually do remember Arena was the first thing, because I remember that was actually one of my first VR experiences, just because I remember I remember vividly like chasing the disc, like this was like before regrab was even really like part of the meta. And I just, it's like 4 people in a pub, like chasing the disc, and I'm just like screaming because it's like so intense. It was like such an intense experience, screaming with joy. Like it was just so much fun. Those early days of Arena, yeah, I don't know. It really grabbed me, and like I put other of my friends in, and I think unless you kind of have to have this combination of like being like I don't know, and don't quote me on this, but it's like I think if you're a more imaginative person and you enjoy like you like let yourself be transported and like you like film and things like that, like you like experiences and doing like new things, and if you're a very competitive person, on top of that, you like winning, you like games, competing, then like Echo VR is just like gonna be your jam. Like it like checks all those boxes for you, and that was totally how it was for me. Like I would play like after that. I mean, I pretty much would like cancel like any kind of social event for years. I would be like my brother would be like, hey, do you want to go have dinner? And I was like, actually, no. But part of it was that we had a newborn around that time. So it was, when you have a kid, like, I don't know if you have kids, but your free time goes from like, this much to just like whatever you can scrape together. Yeah. And so, my brother would be like, hey, do you want to have dinner? Haven't seen you in a while. And I'd be like, okay, look, I have 1 hour of free time this week and I love you, but I'm going to go play Echo. And I stand by that, that was like, it was important as a parent also to have that escapism, which I never would have understood prior to becoming a parent. And I think Haskell also mentioned this, where she was like, she wrote that article after the shutdown about like how Echo allowed her to be something more than a mom. And, that is really important as a parent, is to like, you lose part of your identity to be like, you become this like B character in your own life, until you have kids. The movie's about you, and it's all, you're the main character. And then as soon as you become a parent, you're not the main character anymore. You're totally expendable. and that hurts, and it hurts your ego, and it's hard. And so that was a lot of it to me too, where Echo gave me it gave me a community, and it gave me a place that I could go to that helped me get away from the stress and the reality of parenting, which everyone has different experiences in the early years of parenting. No one says it's easy. Our experience was really hard. Like our kid woke up 4 times a night, like was super demanding. They call it like spirited children, like when they're just like super high energy and like they just need your attention like every second they're awake. And so I like really needed a place that I could go to that was comfortable and relaxing, and felt like a space that was mine. And Echo just like completely, allowed that. And so it was really important to me. And so that's partly why when they said they were shutting it down, I just like, my jaw was like completely on the floor. I was like, I was hurt, and it felt like, it was like, and a game is a game, right, on some level, but it didn't feel like a game to me. It felt like someone was taking away a part of my life, like in a real place that I loved. And so I think that had a lot to do with like why, when they spun up the Fight for Echo server that you were talking about, I was like, we got to fight this. Like this can't be happening. So that was what I tried to do. And I get it, I understand the business reasons, but I still think, I think it could have been handled differently. And I hope this was a learning experience for everyone involved, on the shutdown side, that it's a different thing to shut down a virtual world. It's like, in Silicon Valley, like they're used to shutting down services, right? Like Google sunsets this application, that app. It's just like happens all the time. And so I think that probably was the playbook they were reading from. And, they're like, look, it's, in kind of the way Boz talked about it, he's like, look, this is a tough part of my job, but I got to do it. So we're shutting it down, and it's like, that's kind of how, they do things like in the tech industry. But it's different. I think it's different in VR, because you're taking away a place. It's like if you were to be like, okay, we're demolishing your favorite bar, or like like Haskell actually said it best. She's like, it'd be like if you were like, or if the local arcade like burned down in a fire, and it was where everyone went to like it was a community rallying point that people loved and cared about. And they're like, well, we're going to shut this down. And it's just like, I don't think you really know what you're doing. Otherwise, you would keep the lights on somehow. And then that's my opinion, right? But I hope they learn from this, that the lesson they take away is that, try not to do this if possible, because you're going to make a lot of people mad. And I think in the VR community especially, we are the people that really stuck up for Mark Zuckerberg and Meta and the vision for VR in the early days, right? Like I was, once I got into VR, and I was like, man, this is amazing, right? When Meta did their big pivot, Facebook turned into Meta, a lot of people were like, it's ridiculous, oh my, this is like insane. What is he doing? And but I was, and a lot of us, I'm sure, were like on the side of Meta, being like, hey, no, this actually is the next big thing. Like, this is amazing. I'm in the metaverse all the time, like this game called Echo. You're talking about it to your friends and sticking up for that strategy. And so it felt like, when they were like turning around, and again, I understand the business reasons, but it just felt like a stab in the back. It's like, oh man, like, I was sticking up for you, like, and this is how you're repaying me, and so it just sucked, right? Like, it was just, it was a gut punch to me, and I was surprised, I was surprised at my own reaction, like, that I took it so hard. But anyway, I guess it speaks to how important Echo is to me. And so I was hoping, in the back of my mind, when we organized the flyover campaign, I was really hoping that like this decision had not gotten to Mark yet, to Mark Zuckerberg.
Okay, can I pause it there, because we moved on. We went. I can't remember what we were talking about before. We transitioned very nicely into the shutdown of Echo, and obviously what that means to you. I really like that last tangent about a time where the whole company of Facebook as a parent company was pivoting towards in this new direction of Metaverse, all of this. And you're right. There was so much like pushback of like, this is dumb. This is way too early. It's not going to make sense. And it was kind of these niches like us, like the VR chat niche, Horizon Worlds, Rec Room, these kind of like internet communities that were heavily in VR. And one of them was Echo, was people playing arena and combat. And it hurts when we're like, it felt like we were the ones backing him up. And then a decision is made within Meta, which kills like a metaverse. It feels incredibly counterintuitive. So one of my questions normally, especially people that are heavily involved, like at the time of the shutdown, is like, what was your initial reaction? Which I think you've kind of covered. And yours is a very, you've got a very interesting like story to that reaction, because it eventually led to you managing the flyover. Before like going deep into that, could you tell me like the experience, your personal experience of like first reaction to the shutdown, your involvement with the Save Echo campaign and the Discord and all of that stuff, which led you to arrange, what was it, $3,000 to get that flyover? Like what led to that drastic course of action?
I've mentioned a little bit about why Echo was important to me. I remember listening to, I think it was Upload VR, talk about Ian Hamilton talking about, everyone remembers where they were when Echo VR was shut down. Like everyone who was in the community like remembers exactly where they were. And I was sitting at my desk. It was probably like I don't remember the day of the week, but I was working with another combat community member, Biff Bish. We were actually at the same company at that time. It was a startup. And he was like, he DM'd me and he was like, he just DM'd me the link to the blog article about the shutdown, the post from Rad on the their Medium account. And, I was just, when you're working, you're thinking about work and not about anything else. And I just it just completely derailed me because it was the last thing I was expecting. I mean, I never, I guess, maybe I should have, the fact that the last update was called Into the Night, I remember seeing that and I was like, no, so I was like, no way. And so I just didn't even think about it. I was like, that's gotta be a mistake, right? Or it's not a coincidence, it's a coincidence. And, so I was just floored, I was floored. Everything was going through my head at once, it's like, but really I just thought, this has to be a mistake, right? I was like, there's no way they would be, eating their own community like this. Like they must have done it. Like Meta's a big company and, sometimes the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. And I was like, this has to be a mistake. That was really my first reaction. I was like, we can reverse this. I was like, because I really believe that like if they knew what they were doing, that it so far outweighs the cost of keeping the servers going. And of course, there's other reasons involved, but that was my thought. I was kind of like, holy crap, but like, wait, we'll fix this. That was kind of what I hoped. And so I don't know where I got the link to the Fight for Echo Discord. That was the kind of the spin-off Discord, helping to kind of, see what we could do to protest this or reverse it. And so I jumped in there, and some of the combat people were mods in there, I think Vibinator and maybe a few other people. And so, I was just kind of like, hey, how can I get involved? How can I help? Like, what's the plan? And there was the change.org petition. I was like, great, that's a great like signal of how many people are involved in this. And I don't know, the concept of doing a flyover, like that was not the first thing that came to my mind. The first thing was kind of like, who do we talk to at Meta? Like, how do we, like, let's try to figure out what happened here and why, because there wasn't a lot of information in the post about why this shutdown was occurring. It was just like, hey, this is the end, goodbye. We're sorry. And I get it, right? Like, I don't know, maybe not a master course in community management, but it is what it is. I was like, let's figure out what's really happening here. Like, why are they doing this? And so gradually the pieces kind of came together, and it made a little bit of sense, but it still didn't make a ton of sense. And so ultimately there was one guy, I forget his name, in the Discord, and he was like, oh, we should fly an airplane over the HQ. And I was like, yeah, because I'm like, that can't be that expensive. Like, it's in the grand scheme of things, because people were talking about, oh, let's make a billboard and we'll put it outside the HQ. And I'm like, dude, billboards are expensive. Like, and there's a lead time on billboards. Like, it's months, especially in Silicon Valley. Like, we could raise that kind of money. And then you gotta, but it's hard. And you gotta like make sure the billboard's facing the offices, and there's not a lot of billboards around in Menlo Park, really. And so, but I was like, oh, a flyover, like that can't be that expensive, right? And so I looked up a local organization or like a local, aviation company, and called them up, talked to the guy, and I was like, look, how much money are we talking for like a couple of hours in the sky? And he was like, well, it's about $1,000 an hour. I'm like, oh, we could totally raise that, I was confident that we could do it. And so at that point I thought, well, in the absence of any other way to get in front of Meta and have our voice heard, right? We have to do this. There's what else are we going to do? And my hope was that they would. My hope was that, because the text read, it read like, Zuck, don't kill VR esports, and then it had the URL of fightforecho.org. And my hope was that, maybe like so in the Facebook, in the Meta org chart, it's, Mark's at the top, and then it's everyone else below. And Bosworth is one of those guys, kind of, right at the, what is he, the CTO, I think? I forget. Yeah. But in any case, so Mark can override Boz, right? And so my hope was that, well, maybe Mark doesn't really know a lot. Maybe Mark doesn't even know this is happening. It's kind of like, right. That was my one hope, that maybe he didn't. And I knew, of course, since Echo had been one of the flagship games, and they did a piece for Oculus Connect where Mark and Boz were in the game, I knew Mark had played the game and knew about it. And so I thought, well, maybe if he knows, like he's shutting down this game, but it's also going to hurt VR esports as a whole. And I thought, well, maybe if we can get his attention, that's, because what else are we going to do? We're not convincing Boz. There was all those, he did all those AMAs, and he was just like, nah. and that's, I get it, right? It's like, he's playing the role, like he's got to kind of do that. And again, like there are reasons why that have more to do with kind of like internal to Meta, right? So that was the hope with the flyover, was that we could we could kind of get Mark's attention, and maybe he'd be like, oh wait, yeah, this is a bad idea. Let's just at least keep these servers going, you know. So that was how it started up.
And what was it like personally? So before I ask that question, so I kind of want to flesh out the story a little bit more. So you did it. You took the initiative. You actually planned it. I remember there was chats like trying to work out what's the exact message we're going to send. We crowdfunded it super quick. We got the money, set it up, got the date, got the plane in the air, and then you sat in the car for 3 hours recording the plane around Menlo Park.
Yeah. That was a crazy day. Because I kept, oh man, and it was also my first time doing a YouTube stream, which in retrospect probably should have set it up. Like there was audio issues and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, but it was really hectic. Basically, that morning I rented like a telephoto lens. I've got a pretty decent camera, rented a decent lens and a tripod, and like headed down with my laptop. And I kind of know that. I live in the Bay Area, so I kind of know that area. Like, but you know what I realized when I got there was that when I got to the Facebook campus, the Meta campus, that really it's all kind of like there's a freeway that goes right by it that's almost like a moat. Like it's kind of like a castle, and then there's like water on the other side. Right. So I wasn't like totally confident about what parts of land were owned. I met like what I didn't want to trespass, right? I wasn't going to like go onto the campus and like then just get kicked off. And so I had to find like an area of land, and I eventually found this like little patch of grass like across the freeway that I had to like off-road in my like Scion, XA, like not a four-wheel drive car, like up this dirt path, and right next to like a homeless encampment, and I'm pulling out this like very expensive camera. I've got this like laptop, I'm like, this could go poorly. But it was the only place I could find. Everything else was like either like way far away, or it was maybe on Meta's property. And so, but I found a spot, I'm like, cool, okay. And got all set up, and the time sort of ticked by, and it became the time that the plane was supposed to be in the sky, and it wasn't there. And so I called the guy who was managing the flight, the actual plane, and he was like, please hold, we have maybe a situation. And I was like, wait, what do you mean situation? And I'm like he'd given me the transponder of the plane so I could track it on the web, and I kind of saw like it was like the plane went up and then down again, and I was like, texting like, hey, what's going on? And he was like, I haven't heard from the pilot in about 30 minutes. I have contacted Livermore County Fire Department in case he went down. And I was like, wait, what? I was like, the plane went down? Like, are you kidding me? So I'm just like panicking, like, God, can this actually happen? And then I'm starting to think about like, how do they get that sign on the plane anyway? And like, apparently it's like on like the plane has like a hook, and it takes off without the sign, and then it has to do this really low pass and hook, and it has to hook the sign and then carry it away. But if it misses, it has to go around, try again, and it's kind of like a tricky maneuver, right? And so he was like, in this guy's mind, he's like, well, I haven't heard from the pilot, like he may have gone down. And so I'm just like, God, that's like, are you kidding me? Like, and then finally, like, it was like a grueling 15 minutes. And finally the guy texts me back, and he's like, no, okay, we're good. Like, you should see him in about 10 minutes. Right. And he was taken off from Livermore, which is across the bay. So the plane had to go all the way over the bay. And, so I got all set up, and there it was, there came the plane. And of course the live stream was going crazy, and I had some audio issues, but so I spent the next 3 hours with a handheld. The tripod broke, so I was like handheld with a telephoto, weighed about 20 pounds, just like trying to get the focus right. And like as this thing went around, it would fly directly above me, and so I just like try to get it, and then it'd go around. But it felt really good, it felt like I was like, they have to see this. I mean, and we we may have had some insider information that the VR team, which doesn't actually work out of that office, but they were there on the day of the flyover for an offsite. So we knew they were there, and we knew what building they were in. Again, not going to tell you how we know that, but so we know they saw it, right? And we know that it came out later that it had made internal chatter. They have like a little board inside Meta for like venting about the company, and people were like, "Hey, what's this all about? You know, there's a plane flying around. What have we done? You know?" And so it did get noticed inside the company, and you know, they still chose to do nothing. And again, I think that was the wrong choice. Like, you know, if I were there, I would have done it differently. I think other people made it clear that they would have also done it differently. John Carmack would have done it differently. He said, I believe that. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I believe that was what he said. And or he said that this type of value should not be destroyed. And so I agree, right? It's like, it's a damn shame, but we tried. You know, I think that we did everything that we possibly could have as a community to make our voice heard and to express our frustration. And that's all we could have hoped to do in the end.
Have you ever been involved in a protest before the shoot?
Not really. No. No. But I tend to like, I don't know, again, it's like, maybe it's the competitive spirit in me where I tend to like not take things laying down. You know, I tend to try to, you know, fight it if I can.
And like, how was it? Did you have much of a reaction to see all of like Upload VR and Road to VR, all of these like VR well-known media outlets using your video and quoting your YouTube channel?
Yeah, I thought that was great. And I hoped that we would have gotten a little bit broader coverage. I mean, that was the goal. And we did send out, we had a whole press release about it that went out. We sent it out, we direct emailed, you know, over 100 local and national media outlets, because we were trying to make it a bit of a broader story about like digital content and like, you know, because the story to me is more about who owns your data in the cloud. You know, it's like all of the stuff we consume now, whether it's a TV show or a podcast or, you know, even your own photos and videos, like you no longer own those locally on your local computer for the most part. You are dependent on Netflix or Hulu or whoever to like keep the lights on. And if they decide that they're done with it, like you have no purchase on that. Like you have no control anymore. And that's, I mean, this trend has been going on for a long time. The media's talked about it. And so maybe they were like, well, whatever, it's this VR thing no one cares about. And they didn't decide to write a story, but I thought it really was a bellwether, you know, and people may look back on it, you know, as VR expands, they may look back on this as kind of like an inflection point. I hope people at least know about it inside the community and inside the industry, so that when it comes time to, you know, building new, and this kind of dovetails into what we're doing now at Another Axiom, but when it comes time to build new virtual worlds and new games, it's important to from the beginning do the work to ensure that the servers and the technology of the game and the infrastructure is not dependent on a central location, a central authority to keep it running, to the extent possible, right? It's difficult. It's a difficult engineering problem, and that's why it doesn't happen more often. And you know, John Carmack kind of wrote about it. He was like, you know, we got to start from the beginning and engineer games this way, so that if the company goes away, you know, you can still kind of keep the thing running. It doesn't just totally disappear. So that's kind of what we're trying to do at Another Axiom, to some extent, to the extent we can. And I hope that this encourages other people in the industry to think about that from day one.
Cool. Before we move on, is there anything else that you want to say about the flyover? Anything like, did you see it, envision it going any other way, or were you like pretty what happened? You expected that to happen, and
yeah. I mean, I was so happy that the community was able to raise that money. I wasn't sure it was going to happen. It was like really, really touching to me to see everyone else like throw in real money, and it's not like we're all, not all of us are, adults with careers with just like money to burn. People were pitching in like $5, $10, $20. And that's like a lot. When you're pitching in that amount, like that money means something usually. And so it really was touching. Like I was really happy that I could kind of like carry out what I felt was kind of like the wishes of the community, to have our voice heard, and I am sad that it didn't go. I am sad that it didn't turn out the way we wanted it to. Like, that maybe Mark would see it and say like, okay, yeah, this is a mistake. Like, sorry guys, we'll keep the servers running. That was kind of my hope. Like, you don't have to maintain the game and update it. Just keep the servers on so we can still play it. But that was technically unfeasible, unfortunately. And Boz mentioned it, I guess. He talked about compliance issues that Meta has that other companies don't have. And my understanding is that was what it was at the end of the day, more than anything else, that there was a cost to keeping Echo in compliance with Meta, because Meta was, I don't know the whole situation, but this is all public knowledge. I'm not saying anything I shouldn't. It's like Meta has a compliance requirement from, I believe, the FCC lawsuit or SEC lawsuit. I'm sorry, I don't know the acronyms, but a federal agency requires Meta to adhere to certain compliance standards, and they needed to. That was part of why they couldn't just keep the servers running, because it's not that expensive to keep some servers running, especially at the low user count, right? And that was my initial thought. I was like, why can't they just keep it running? Don't shut it down. But that was the reason why that they couldn't just keep them running. It was going to be a cost to sort of retrofit the Echo servers. And I think it also had something to do with the fact that, Meta, and this is again well known, that they made cuts, around that time, and so they were very clearly trying to like tighten the belt. And so the idea of like spending money to keep this game alive wouldn't have looked very good politically if Mark or Boz had been like, all right, everyone else has to take cuts, but we're going to spend some money on this random game. That doesn't look so good internally. So they had their backs to the wall, and I understand that. But I do still think it was a shame, and I still think they should have reconsidered, or maybe tabled it for a later time, when the stock was doing better. Sorry, I don't think I answered your question 100%.
No, you did. It was an open question to like any other thoughts on the, I guess the broader conversation of the shutdown, but specifically what you were trying to get out of the flyover and that protest. And
it just made me so happy to see everyone on the live stream, that came to watch it in the comments, and it just made me happy because I felt like we were all working as a unit and trying pushing towards this greater cause, and it's like a David and Goliath kind of thing. And I was happy to that we pulled together and executed it, even if it didn't succeed. I felt like we had to do it. It was like if we didn't do it, we would have fallen short of our options.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so I wanted to ask about your experience with combat, because earlier, about 20 minutes ago, you're saying that you have like 1 hour a week to play Echo, and you like protect that and make sure you do that. But then I saw on channel you have, hang on, I wrote it down. The name of a website you built, ecranked.com.
Yeah.
You built this? Or was this
no, effort? I didn't. So Biff Bish is another member of the Echo Combat community, and he built that website. And he put me on, I contributed a very small amount of code to that, and he was very kind to put me as a contributor, even though I wrote like a 3D replay viewer that takes the replay data from combat matches and like shows it, on the web. And so I guess I wrote a little bit, but he wrote 90% of that code, and he now works at another Axiom also. That's
Oh, right. Oh, wow.
that kind of code got him, was part of what got him a job at AA. But yeah, sorry. So what was the question?
I guess I was pointing out that existed and that you were involved enough to contribute to it in terms of the code, but also to make a little video about it, share how to use this statistics tool. For
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So 1 hour a week is an exaggeration. Well, there was at one point in the early years of parenting, really only a few hours I had a week to do anything outside of parenting. But I did have more time, and I do have more time now. I can play a little bit more now, but it's still really, I still have to guard a job. It's not like it was before parenting, where I just had all weekend. When you're a parent, your weekends kind of go away. Like normally you have weekends, but as a parent, when you clock out after work, you're kind of clocking into parenting, and in the weekend it's the same way. So. Yeah.
Well, these questions are coming from going on your YouTube and seeing a couple, like the only thing they had in common was they were VR videos. It seems like you're a person that likes to, branch out, try different things and tinker. You're a tinker. I saw something about like a fridge that locks itself when it shuts and a meditation pillow.
Yeah. I should say when I'm not like shooting robots in VR, my other hobby is meditation, which might seem a little counterintuitive because they're complete opposites. But I got really into meditation like about 10 years ago, and it's completely changed my life in a lot of other ways. It's like it's very separate to this, but I love it.
Let's talk about it. Let's definitely talk about it.
Sure.
Because you're halfway through making a meditation film with your bio on a website.
Yeah. I like. So it's kind of a long story. I'll try to keep it relatively brief, but a long time ago in my 20s, I ran a business that made some money, and so when I was around 25, I had not a lot of money, but a decent amount of money to kind of throw around, and I do like to go outside my comfort zone. So while I'm not a videographer, I'm not a director, but I knew some people in the film industry, in the documentary film world, and I had just started to get into meditation and like found it was like really amazing in a way that like I never would have imagined. And I thought, wow, what would be really cool to kind of do with this money is like what if I could make a documentary about meditation to kind of show people how what meditation is? Because I don't know, if you've never meditated, or if you've only meditated for 5 minutes at a time, it's like you kind of might not know exactly what's possible with meditation. And it turns out it's just an amazing tool for your mind, and you can go to play like I would compare it in some ways to VR. So one of the things that happened to me when I started meditating was that I would have these out of body experiences, where the first one, it was like I would like launched out of it was like crazy. I was asleep, and then I woke up in my bed, and this like spinning sensation, like all this like it was like rumbling like a rocket, and I had the sensation like my sense of self just like launched out of my body, like out of the top of my head, just like boom, and it was like violent. It was like I was like, whoa, like what the hell is this, right? And when I opened my eyes, I was in like a different world. Like it was like I want to call it like a lucid dream kind of, but I was awake. Like that was the difference. Like, and I don't know what this experience means. Like, I don't claim to know what happened to me, but there was this object that appeared. It had writing on it that I'd never seen before. It was like hieroglyphics, but not. And I was like, anyway, so I could go on for a while about it, but it was like VR, in that like you can have these like really amazing experiences that go beyond like what you would experience in normal life, and that's just the tip of the iceberg, let me tell you. So I was like, wow, I gotta people should know about this, you know. And so I got some friends together, a local guy who'd done a bunch of documentary work, and we started trying to make it. And we ran out of money about midway through. It turns out like editing films turns into the expensive part, and editing is really hard. And so, yeah, we're actually still looking to pull the money together to get an editor. We're sitting on like probably like a terabyte of footage. It's tons and tons of footage.
Whoa.
And we got a story. We got a really interesting story. It's kind of, we call it Super Meditate Me, from the like Super Size Me was the kind of original film.
Yeah.
You track a guy who like does, and it turns out to be me, and like track a guy who like does like a rigorous meditation regimen, and then see what happens. And yeah, and so it turns out a lot happens. So it's a big rabbit hole, and it's a fun thing. And that's what I was doing like prior to when I got back into VR. I was like deep into meditation, and then VR came along, and I was kind of like, you know, I kind of like shifted passions in a way. Like I was like, oh, this is amazing. And the film had run out of money, so I was kind of like, shoot, what do I do now? But yeah, so that's the story of the film.
So quick question on that. What does rigorous amount of meditation mean? Is that like 5 minutes a day, or is this like 2 hours a day, or even more?
It was, so I tried not to do I mean, you can really go heavy on meditation, but I had a full-time job at the time, so I only did an hour a day actually in the beginning. Only an hour, yeah. Which is a lot, yeah. It is kind of a long time for most people, but what I found was that it always took 30 minutes to get into the initial meditative state. If you do less than 30 minutes, you're going to just think it's a waste of time, because your brain has to settle first. It's like your brain is kind of like an echo chamber, and if you just sit down, it just keeps echoing for a while, and it's just like random thoughts, and for most people. But what happens is it gradually settles down very slowly, and then there's a certain point at which your thoughts are just gone. And that is a new experience for most people, to have no thoughts in their mind. And it sounds weird and scary, but it's actually like amazing. It's like being a new person almost. Like you are like, your sense of awareness, like watching your mind, and it's like a cool, calm lake. And I wish I'd had that ability, you know, I wish I'd known about that when I was like younger, because of the stress you have to deal with in school and in life and in your career, and just having the ability to know that like 30 minutes away is like utter calm, like unfathomable calm and tranquility that you've never experienced before in your life, would have helped me in that, in my life, you know. Yeah, sorry, I keep forgetting the questions.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely fine. If I want to interrupt you, I'll be like, hey, let's go this way instead. No, this is really good. This is really good. I got it. The question I was going to ask is, you said that VR kind of replaced it. Did VR replace the passion, or did VR kind of replace the meaning that you got from meditation as well? Or was it more like there was a big gap? Was it like, this is a hobby back in your 20s, money ran out, moved on, got a family, did all this, and now it just happens to be VR? Like, is there no connection?
Well, there's some connection, but VR didn't replace meditation. VR, well, to some extent. So like, I like to explore things, and meditation was a field that I could like really explore and get deep in. And, you know, I mean, if you are really dedicated to meditation, you can go outside your body, and it sounds crazy, right? And again, I don't know if you're actually going outside your body. Like, I don't really know what's happening, but you can get good at whatever this thing is, and you can get out. And I can do that. Like, if I really practice and really focus, like, you can. It's crazy, but it's so the exploration of that is what's interesting to me, right? So with VR, in a funny way, like, VR is kind of a substitute for that, because I can enter an alternate universe, and it's a lot easier to do, but it has limitations, right? And it's different. It's very different. And so there's some overlap between the two. But I think what really, when the film ran out of money, I had to decide. There were a number of life events that happened, and one of which was having a kid. And once you have a kid, it's like, again, like your free time goes to almost nothing. And so I was taking time off of work to do the film. There was no way I could do, you probably know from doing these videos, like it's pretty time consuming.
Yeah.
You have to spend a lot of time on it. And so the same is true with making a film. It's like, if you're trying to do it in your off hours and you have a kid, like never going to happen. Good luck. So I kind of was like, and so I was taking time off of work. We're burning through money. We live in the Bay Area. We're not like independently wealthy. So we were kind of burning our savings a little bit. And I, at a certain point I had to be like, well, if we can't raise more money for this film, like I have to go back to work. So that was pretty much what happened. And I still do meditate. I still meditate a lot, and I've still got a lot of interest. I want to finish the film. But we need to find the money from somewhere, and that's challenging.
What's the purpose of the film? Is it, and I think the answer is that you found this awesome thing and you want to let people know, you want to share the message that this is awesome. Hey, come try it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I also wanted to look at some of the science behind meditation. So we did a lot of analysis, like we worked with people at UCSF neuroscience and like a metabolomics lab, which is like they analyze your blood. And because I kind of wanted to see, like, all this weird stuff is happening, like, does it have an effect on your brain? Like, what is it actually doing to you from a physiological level? Or is it all just happening, in your mind, and there is no physiological correlate? So we did a bunch of like deep dives into the science of it, and I find that stuff really interesting. So it was like, yeah, I've got this cool thing. I really think people should know about it. And also like what's happening in your mind, like when you have like an out of body experience, right? Like what is consciousness, right? It's tied into all these big questions about life that I don't think we have answered yet. And, I would have come from the perspective of like, our conscious awareness is kind of like baked into the brain, and like that's all, when you die, it's end of story, that's it, lights out. But once you have the experience of shooting out of your head into another world, it's kind of like you kind of have to take another look. Like I was kind of like, maybe that's not all there is, and so I think that's an interesting question that maybe science could answer one day. Like maybe we will be able to observe whatever it is that shot, if there was anything, that if it wasn't just a massive, hallucination, maybe we will be able to scientifically observe the consciousness and its connection to the body if the two are independent. And VR is an interesting analog to that, an interesting parallel, because in VR it's like you take off the headset and you are in a different world. So who's to say that that's not what's happening with consciousness in the body? That's what it seemed like from a subjective standpoint. So I found that stuff to be fascinating, but I wanted to investigate that, and I still do. And I've still got some experiments going to do that. I'm trying to, when I do this like out of body thing, I'm trying to like separate out and then go manipulate some sensors that I've got set up to see if that, whatever it is, I never want to say spirit because it's such a loaded term, right? But like whatever it is that seems to be separate, but it certainly seems like something is separating, because when you're separated out, you see the room around you, like you see yourself laying in bed, and you see like everything's around you. It's just like almost like a copy of the world, rather than like it's not one-to-one, which is weird, but it's like it is very much a copy, and it feels like a copy. So who's to say if I can't go and like tinker with an electrometer, some kind of voltage sensor, like maybe I can wiggle something in the real world from this, like they call it astral, but like, Yeah. So anyway, I've got stuff going on still with that, but meditation and meditation will take you there. So like, it's a really cool practice. But yeah, but VR kind of scratched that itch in a lot of ways to like be in a different place and have a new experience. So yeah, interesting kind of parallel there.
I want to ask about you. You mentioned that you've got kids. Are they close to the age of being for using VR yet, or are they still like much younger?
Well, I have the one kid, and we're too scared
Okay.
to have another one. But but he's 5 years old. He just turned
Okay.
5, so technically he's too young for VR. But he has a really big head, and so he fits in the headset. And so I like, I don't know. And when you look into like Meta says that you're not supposed to have people in, I think, over the age of 10, or it was 13 and they changed it to 10.
Yeah, it did get
I think.
dropped, I believe. I can't remember specifics, but I think it got dropped to 10 or 11.
Okay. And when you kind of look into why that is, there's not a ton of research as far as like the effects of VR on kids. And so I was kind of like, yeah, you can go in VR. He kept asking, he's like, can I put on the headset? And I was like, yeah, sure. And so I put him in Gorilla Tag, and he just absolutely loved it. Like he just like took to it. Like, I mean, and so I let him play. For, he probably plays like 30 minutes to an hour a day of Gorilla Tag. And I mean, he just absolutely loves it. So I hate to like, I'm like, well, you're only 5, like maybe. And, I try to keep an eye and make sure he's not like, I don't know what could happen to kids, like brains, but, what I hope it's like is that the same way that kids can learn 2 languages when they're young, it's kind of like that. Your brain is kind of just learning another set of rules to engage with a different space. And, I don't see him like stumbling over, forgetting about gravity, or, trying to use gorilla physics in the real world. It just seems like his brain is kind of like bilingual in that capacity, and he loves it. So, yeah, so he plays a lot.
Do you have any thought? Okay, so with the context of the work you're doing now, working like particularly in the VR industry, we won't get into specifics of what you're doing, but do you have any like thoughts, or have you pondered on this already, like the world that you're building, that your son's going to be growing up into? Like earlier you were saying how when you have kids, you're not the main character anymore. You have to take
Yeah.
that back seat. So thinking like with your child in mind, like
Yeah.
how do you see it going, and do you feel like you're working to change that in the same way you stepped in with the Save Echo?
Yeah. I do feel kind of like a sense of responsibility as a parent. And I have some skin in the game now with a kid who actually uses VR. And so, I mean, the nice thing is that, so the game he plays right now is Gorilla Tag, and Gorilla Tag has really good moderation tools. So there's some level of trash talk, maybe bordering on toxicity, but for the most part, it's pretty okay. It's a pretty okay space that I feel comfortable that he can be in. And he's learning a lot of new words, like, don't get me wrong, like, he's learning some words that you kind of, like, and he doesn't know what swear words are really. And so he'll just come out and say stuff like, what did he say before? Like but he thinks it's hilarious when he like he's still in the phase where he imitates what other people say. And so I'll hear him upstairs going like, what the hell? Like he's never said that. He doesn't even know what that means, and it gets, sometimes he says worse things and we have to be like, can't say that, but he's going to learn those words on the playground anyway. Like, it's not really like, you can't, shelter your kids from everything. And so, so I feel pretty good. Like and Gorilla Tag is, I had never played it, and I kind of thought it was just a game for kids, before I actually started playing it. And when I got into it, it ended up being really special for me because I went in, the first time I went in with my kid. We had 2 headsets, so I kind of went in with him. And it was really like a great bonding experience with him. Like, when you're a parent, you're like always looking for ways to like really connect with your kids. And it's often like hard to do that. And a lot of kid activities are not really fun for grown-ups. Like the things that they find to be really fun, like you're not probably not going to find to be very fun. Like, coloring. I mean, coloring is fun, but not something I do in my spare time. Or like climbing on a playground, going to a park in a playground. Like as a grown up, like I can't really go on those. I can go on the monkey bars, but like it's a pain, and I'm going to hurt myself. And but in VR, you can do that kind of stuff, and it's kind of like this infinite playground. And he loves it, and I love it, and so we were able to spend time together. So yeah, when it comes time to like thinking about what kind of VR spaces we're trying to make for our kids, I think it is important to mostly, I think it's the moderation like tools and making sure that that when people are being disrespectful or toxic, that there's an easy way to moderate that and have that dealt with, because that can really poison and pollute an otherwise great experience. So yeah, so we have that for Gorilla Tag, and we're trying to incorporate that into the next games we're making.
What are your thoughts on Echo's moderation, or like how they tried to handle it?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it could have been done better. I mean, so I'll put it this way. So being a combat player, we just don't have we almost have no need for the moderation tools because it's such a small community. It never made it to quests. There's no quest players, which keeps the age range pretty high.
Yeah.
So we don't really need those tools, which is a blessing. But obviously, having played enough Arena, like when Arena launched for Quest, the atmosphere changed a decent amount, and there was I think even recently I was trying to report a player, and it was pretty complicated. Like I kind of gave up after a certain point, and was like, okay, this is too difficult. So I think probably there could have been some better systems in place. But I'll say in their defense, like it was a new problem, a pretty new problem of not toxicity in games, but like in VR. And I think the things that they did, like the muting features, the ghosting features, the kind of personal boundary, like all that stuff, like works pretty well, at least in the lobbies. But I think it's going to evolve, and I think it's lessons were probably learned about how to do that a little bit better. That certainly are going to influence the way games are made, or the way we're going to make games now at AA.
Cool. I guess I was asking if you had any like ideas already. But if you say you're a combat player, so you weren't in too many pubs, on the Arena side, and playing with a lot of these kids, because it really has deteriorated towards the end. I played like 2 the other day. I played 2 earlier this week, and just bad. Like instantly within like 30 seconds, you've got the N word being thrown around, and it's just not fun. It's so bad.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. I mean, I think in Gorilla Tag, it's kind of an interesting approach where there's like the moderation. There's like a in the game, in the level, like it would be kind of like if over there was like a list of all the players in the game, and you could just like hit report on them, and you can also mute, and so that leads to a lot of like false positives. So you kind of have to like have some algorithmic approach to filtering out spurious, people who go and like spam, like report everybody. But it does work pretty well, and it results in like an auto ban. So if you get enough reports in a certain threshold of time, or over a certain period of time, you will just get auto banned for I don't know what the default auto ban is, but it's like a couple days, and that works pretty well. Yeah. So, and also I don't mind muting the enemy team. Like I thought that was a really important feature, is muting your opponents, and doesn't help if the toxic player is on your team, but 50-50 odds, right?
Okay, I really appreciate you taking the time here. I've got a couple more questions just to close this off, but I'm going to do like a few quick ones now. Because I appreciate it's been about an hour and a half probably. I haven't really been checking the time. I wanted to ask about like working in VR, and I asked that because about 2 years ago, so one of the videos that I saw on your YouTube channel was you set up the Oculus PC VR home with your monitors, and you're like, hey, look at this. It's a solution for working. Now it's a whole thing. Now there's a product that Meta are pushing to allow you to do that. There's a few other third-party studios building that kind of solution as well. Do you work in VR? Do you use any like remote desktop solutions?
I did for a while doing video editing.
Oh wow.
It was a little tricky because of the resolution. You kind of have to like already know your footage and know that it's like, you know, looks right, like looks the way you want it to, and like probably don't want to do like color grading and color correction in VR maybe, but to do stuff like editing, if you got a pretty powerful PC, like it's not bad. You got all your, you know, monitors set up, and it's cool to be able to like go to spaces and places you've never been, or and have them like as your remote work, you know, background. It's like you could be at the top of Mount Fuji, like watching the sunrise, you know, and that was what I would do. Is I would open up Google Earth actually, and go somewhere and like top a half dome, you know, or wherever there was a good 360 photo taken, and set up and do some work, and I would use the Quest. So eventually the battery became an issue because it wouldn't charge quite fast enough to keep, you know, I couldn't use it for like 8 hours, but it was a nice way. Like at the time I was working in like a kind of dingy garage, and it wasn't like the most creative, it wasn't the most inspirational space to be in. So it was like awesome to be able to kind of go to a place and kind of feel like, wow, I'm in this beautiful location. I don't do it anymore, although because mostly what I'm doing now is I'm doing programming, and you have to be able to read a lot of really small text, and that I think is not quite there yet. Maybe, I mean, with the Quest it's much better, with Quest 2, but you know, and well, to be fair, I haven't really tried it, but I probably should. I haven't done it in a while, but I probably should try it.
And I'm guessing are you on a CV1 right now?
Yeah.
OG Rift, yeah. And
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on? Are you thinking about giving yourself an upgrade? Are you looking at any other headsets at the moment?
Not really. I kind of love the CV1. The weight is great. The latency compared to the Quest. Every time I've played via link cable, I feel like it adds about 50 to 100 milliseconds of latency to my control, to everything I do. And so in combat, I mean, and in Arena 2, I think it's a bit of a, you know, it's a slight detraction from, you know, you're trying to, you need millisecond reaction time, and so I just prefer to play on the CV1, even though it's a bit of a screen door, you know, effect, and FOV is not as good. And then for AA, we're I don't know what we're going to target ultimately, but we're predominantly looking at mobile headsets like Quest 2 and et cetera, and they're going to at least be our main user base. So again, I don't know what we're going to target ultimately, so I don't want to say that we are or not going to target a specific platform, but mostly we're testing on the Quest, and so so I'm basically just looking at next gen Quest to be my next purchase probably. But I love PCVR, so if Valve ever releases something new, or I don't know who else is going to end up in the PCVR
Or have
space.
you seen the big screen headset?
Yeah, it looks awesome. It looks really cool. I do want to try it, but I haven't dug into it too much, just because we already have. I think we have like 3 or 4 headsets. So I just haven't, and I get along fine with my CV1, so I'm just like, haven't even looked into it yet, but looks like a great headset.
And what do you think of the Apple Vision that was recently
Oh yeah,
announced?
actually, I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be great for the industry.
Hey, I'm just going to cut in here and say that we're going to do something a little bit different now. So obviously amazing interview with Rev, but now we're going to go into a different scene. We've been recording this in the arena, in the Echo Arena. We're now going to go into some combat maps, And Rev, an absolute veteran when it comes to combat, is going to give us some insider, an insider tour into the combat maps. We're going to fly through them, and cams done by Wonder T-Man, the absolutely talented, top-notch, best cams in the world when it comes to VR esports. It's going to be cinematic, it's going to be beautiful, and I really hope you enjoy. Here we are.
Hello.
Hey. Cool. Yeah, so this is Fission. This is like the kind of OG combat payload map.
Okay.
Payload return. Payload mobilized.
And it's also got this like pretty serious choke point. You know, you have to fight pretty hard just to get it out of the gate. I'd say, you know, this map, Surge was weighted towards defense. This map is weighted towards defense on this part of the map, but when you get to the end, it's actually weighted towards offense, I think. Well, actually, no, I take that back. It's also weighted towards defense. So really both of the payload maps are weighted towards defense. So yeah, like you were saying, this is like a pretty complicated area. So there's a lot of places to hide. Oops. A lot of places to hide.
Yeah.
You know, you can kind of, if you're good at playing upside down, you can really get on the ceiling here.
Oh, whoops.
And you know, crab around on the ceiling. That's a good tactic.
Oh, okay. Cool. Whoa.
Yep. Then this next section is probably my favorite part of any combat area. Like this next like section here.
Okay.
You just have so many. I mean, it's just a shooting gallery. And so if you're on defense, you know, I can just drop down and just completely destroy you from above.
Yeah.
No. Feel kind of like, you know, Alien versus Predator, like up here. You're just kind of like crabbing around and you drop on people. It's very satisfying.
All right.
But again, all these choke points really hard to push through for the offensive team.
This does feel a lot tighter of a map. It feels like a lot more close range. Is that fair to say? Compared to the other payload we did.
Yeah, it is. Much more close quarters. Hard to fight with ranged weapons. Although this next section has a pretty open area.
Okay.
No. You'll do if you are you're on defense is just kind of like sit up on those parapets there. You have pretty good sniper shots. Everyone coming out. So it's pretty hard to get even into this little section right here that we're going into. But yeah, it's a good mix of like open map and close quarters fighting. There are a lot of defensible positions. If you're on defense, you know, you're kind of in here. You've got a lot of protection. You're constantly having to push past these choke points, and if you do make it, you know, if you get around to here, it gets pretty hard for defense to stop you. You'll have a lot of people on the payload, and it's pretty much smooth sailing. I mean, most of the time, but not always.
And that's it. Oh, that felt a lot shorter.
Yeah, it's a pretty fast map.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a classic. I mean, it was the original payload map.
Right.
It has more games played than any of the other maps, aside from Dyson.
Is there anything you want to point out about like the game design or the level design anyway, before we wrap this up?
I don't know. I think these maps. Oops, did I lose you? Hang on. Yeah, there's really not much more I could add. I think they did a fantastic job with these maps. Like, really well designed. They're just like. I mean, I've played, you know, thousands of games, and they never get old. So I'm gonna miss them a bit. Oh, it might be. Yeah, that's okay. But yeah, like I was saying, like nobody uses this spawn.
Okay.
Really ever. So it's more just for the gimmick.
So where do we go? Can we
we
go
go
anywhere?
down.
Oh yeah, there we go. I missed you straight away.
Oh, okay. Try to grab you.
We're on the outside there. What did you? Oh, it's just a loose cube by itself. And then we can't go
Yeah.
back out, I imagine. Does it stop you?
I don't think so. I've
no, you
never
can.
tried. Yeah, maybe you can. That's funny.
I wonder if there is any value of being outside the map like this, or not really.
Not really, because you want to control the point, and so
Right.
for like you're not. I don't even think there's a force field here. Oh, there is a force field, so maybe you get some protection. If you go through there, that would be a reason to do it. But there's also like a force field over there, so really nobody spawns out of there. Everyone spawns out of there, and then you go into point area.
So there's a big reason why I like this map. It seems to be the only one that's like daytime.
Yeah, I guess so. That's funny. I think you're right. Yeah.
It's nice. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
actually outside.
Yeah. It's a little relaxing until guns start blazing. You go
Right, so
in
this is like King of the Hill, right? You've got to defend this bubble, stay in the bubble.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, there you are.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's pretty. I mean, it's a very well balanced map. Usually, it's hard to hold, it's hard to push, and capture, but if you do it right, you can. And so it's a good league map, good map for tournaments and things like that. It's been around since V1. It's there's a lot going on. I mean, I guess the name comes from maybe this is like a Dyson sphere.
Oh,
But
okay.
obviously, in the real world, that wouldn't be what a Dyson sphere looks like. But that's the namesake. It's got a sphere at least, and maybe that's where we are in the context of things. We're on a Dyson sphere somewhere. It's great. So yeah, so the objective is right there, that pink circle, and when one person is inside it, you get to hold it. Then you kind of stay in until a timer approaches 100%. This ring kind of like shows the color of the team that is holding it, and it'll go all the way to 100%.
Right.
And that's it. Minute to learn, lifetime to master. Really.
And is there any value in being like around the backside here? Are there like other tunnels in? I'm guessing.
Yeah. Well, this map is kind of symmetrical in that this is sort of the orange side. So orange has a spawn here, orange has a spawn over there, and then I guess oh wait, what is this? Oh yeah, this is like, oh, I've never been back here. That's funny. It's really funny.
Is this an entry point, I imagine?
It is, but how
Never
you get
used it.
there, I actually have no idea. Oh, you know what? It's probably from like the side.
Right. A landing point.
Again, because nobody ever uses those. I
Yeah.
literally have no idea. But 9 times out of 10, you're spawning out of here.
Right.
You're going into the tunnels here.
Oh, I assumed this
into
was
the
going to be like a back
point.
tunnel in. This is actually just a spawn.
Yeah, that's just a spawn. Yeah.
Right. So it is quite like I don't know what the term would be. Not one-dimensional, but there's not that many ways to attack the sphere. If you're in here, you're pretty much looking forward, and then this
the
side
tunnel approach. The tunnel approach is hard, but you can come out. So there's another spawn that people use that's kind of over back here. Each side, you can't really see it, but it's through there, and you don't have to use the direct teleport, so you don't have to like fly there like we did.
Yeah.
That gives you a lot of strategy, because what you really are doing is you're putting pressure on the point, and you've got all these shields here. So these shields are going to stop the incoming missiles and whatnot. And so you can get up here, you can put pretty good pressure on the point just from here.
Oh,
So
right.
if you can do a pretty good flank if you have a couple people up here and a couple people going on from the tunnels, and that's usually how it goes. Or the strategy for a long time was to come up here, and you're fully protected here, and you've got a great shot of everyone down here. So and you can really hide. unless there's a sniper somewhere. But there's a lot of entry points, really.
And I've noticed these shields that you can hide behind, I can fully move through that, and I can stick my hand through it as well. Is that a common strategy, to like stand here and just stick my hand through?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, so that's a pretty good strat. You can get hit, like you can actually hit someone. Their hand is through, like if you hit them on the hand, but usually that doesn't happen. So it's a pretty good
And
cover.
splash damage as well. So if I'm like here, even if I'm fully behind it, would I still get hit?
Yeah, you can take a full rocket and it won't hurt you.
Oh right. Oh wow.
Yeah. Might hurt your hand a little. I forget exactly. The splash is kind of funky sometimes, but for the most part, if you're behind it, you're not going to get hit. But one rocket will take the whole window out. So you do kind of have to keep moving.
This breaks.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I thought it was just a permanent thing. That felt a bit OP.
Yeah. So you can take them out, but then you're kind of like playing this window game where now you're in this window because that one's blown out, and then as you go down, you're closer to the enemy spawn. The enemy spawns over here, so now you're shooting here. Invariably, someone comes out of there and just like jumps you.
Okay. In your time of playing this game, have you seen any design changes? Did they ever like adjust anything?
Oh yeah, they adjusted the weapons quite a bit over time, and I think it's become more balanced as a result. I think the only thing that's not balanced right now is probably the meteor, which is the rocket weapon, and it's pretty powerful. I mean, if you have a team of 4 people with meteor, it's very hard to counter. It's fast. It's got tons of splash damage. Does tons of damage. I mean, you can pretty much eliminate someone with just 2 shots from the meteor. So that'd be the one that I would maybe damp a little bit down. But they've tried. They've really done quite a lot over the years, and I think it's in a pretty good place right now.
Nice. Okay. Do you want to look at another map quick? Because I appreciate you haven't got much time. You're probably out of time actually. Yeah.
We can do one more.
Which one do you recommend?
Guess we should probably do Fission, be the other payload map. So this is Surge is the name of the map, and it is the second payload map. To come to Echo Combat. It is, I would say, is a little bit more balanced than the original payload map, which is Fission. This map, however, is weighted towards, I would say, defense. And the giant flamingo is really the centerpiece. Although you never see it during the game because you're like never looking up. It's really nice. They did a really nice job with that. It's as though we're like, it's like as though we're inside the flamingo. I actually had a dream. I had a dream once, I kid you not, that they made a third map and that you started in the head of that flamingo and had to like fight your way down the neck. And it was actually really great. Kind of sad that never happened. So in combat, you go checkpoint to checkpoint.
Whoa.
This is the first checkpoint. And what it does is it sort of cuts a hole in this little portal here. These open up.
Wow.
And then there's also kind of like side portals that'll open. There's always been a glitch where you can kind of glitch in and out. I'm not very good at it, but a lot of people can kind of glitch in and out. It's sort of
this is epic.
Hit the jump on people, So it takes a minute. To get going, but it'll get going. I like this map. I think it's really well balanced, except at the end. The end is very heavily weighted towards defense, and you'll see what I mean when we get there. There's basically just this map is a series of choke points, and offense has it pretty hard to try to fight their way through. But I still think it's pretty balanced. At the end, it does get a little crazy, and each section kind of has its own feel and play style, and you really have to like know each section really well in order to be good at the game. And payload is just a great game mode. I mean, I've played payload games that I will never forget. I mean, one time, even on this map, like I vividly remember games that I've played like down to the wire, getting down to 1 second within goal and landing it and winning the match. It's really fun. And VR makes it even more fun just to like teach other people. You got a team of noobs and you kind of have to like rally them together and like give them some strategy.
Yeah.
And then it's very rewarding to see them like execute it and actually win. So it's a great game.
How do you find like arena players coming into it and dealing with the mechanics? Do you like feeling like arena players coming in like, yeah, of course, I'm going to be amazing at this. Like, how does that generally turn out?
I mean, some of them are actually really good. Like, you have an advantage if you're an arena player just in terms of the movement.
Yeah.
If you can re-grab around, you're going to be at an advantage. But ultimately, you do have to fight people, and so that's kind of where the arena players like and to need a little bit of practice is the actual gun part. But there's there are strategies where if you have 2 or 3 people and they just pack up and target individual players, that's a really effective strategy, and it's a little OP, to be honest. Like, it's you have 2 really good arena players and they just re-grab from player to player, and it's a 2-on-1 unless there's a group of players that they have to contend with, right? So that strategy works really well. And I forget, there were 2 players, Senbug and who else? There were a couple of arena players that played competitive combat and did really well with that strategy. So here's the end, and it's kind of hard to tell like if you don't play, but this is an almost impossible gauntlet, that middle section there. Because you have a million openings. You've got like, you've got to get through that checkpoint at the very far end that we went through, which is like a really small hole. It's just hard to get through there. And then when you do get through, you've got all these openings. I mean, it's like you can get dropped on from any of these, and there's no visibility. So even if you have threat scan going, it doesn't last forever, and you'll eventually. It's just so easy to hide. Defense, you can hide here, you can hide up there and just drop on them. It's really hard to get past this middle portion, especially because every time you die you have to respawn and you have to like get all the way back up here. So if offense or if defense is pushing the spawn, you can hold the offense back, kind of just like cut them off. And so this is a pretty hard map to play on offense.
Cool. What I find interesting is if you're attacking, you naturally want to use this as cover, right? Is that something that's a lot harder than it sounds to use this?
It is, yeah, but it works pretty well. I mean, especially against ranged weapons. So if you're going against Comet or Meteor, you can usually hide. Meteor, it's harder because there's splash damage. It works pretty well.
Oh, that's it. So this is the last part. That was the last point. Wow.
Surge.
And blue spawn is through here. Right. Okay, cool. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Rev. Thanks for taking the time to do this. Getting past the technical issues. Well, the minor technical issues. We've actually been really good. I'm really excited to see where you go. I'm really excited to hear your story as well and hear like where you've been, all of the meditation stuff. That's
thanks.
Yeah, I didn't know you were that deep into that kind of stuff.
Thanks. And thanks for offering me this chance to sit and talk with you. Thanks for doing these videos. I know it takes a lot of time and effort. If there's any way I can help, again, I only have a few hours a week, but if there's any way I can help, let me know. Thanks, man. I'm sorry this is all going away. I'm really sad.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful game, and I'm glad it was a part of my life for the time that it was.
Is there anything else that you want to say on this? Obviously, it's not a huge platform, but there will be people that are in this community watching this. Is there anything else that you want to say as like parting words? We're recording this with about 8 days left of the game. With that in mind, is there or any like shout outs you want to make to anyone else in the community, any other side projects you're working on?
I mean, not really. I love the Echo community. It like pains me to see it go, but I hope we can all look back on it fondly as because we all had a great time here. We all had like an incredible experience here, and no one can take that away from us.
Awesome. Thank you, Rev 2600.
Thank you.
Really
Mitch.
appreciate you. Thanks for your time. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what comes in the future, in the very near
Thanks.
future.
Thank you. Thanks so much.